World family. How are you on this day? Casting crowns. It's a pretty song. Can you hear it? Ready for that? Are you ready for that story? Anyone that's not religious. Any of you that are not religious. Any of you that are. Are you ready for this? Listen to this verse. Yes, I do. Yes, I do. And Tim. I do care. I do care if you remember it. I do care if my life represents what he has given us. Not just me, what he has given us. I have many things going on at the moment, but a legacy is happening. And I do care. Hello, world family. Hello, world family. Are you ready to hear that story? That the Heavenly Father, Jehovah, and the Heavenly Lord got me through all my trials and tribulations as Mary Magdalene. Now, mine might be very different than yours, and they might not be. The devil chased me my whole life, ever since I was little. Many events occurred in my life. My family is a big family, but I was very young when my parents split. My mother was considered put into a mental institution because they said she heard voices. Now, back then, people thought mental illness and hearing voices was something bad, something of a sickness. Today, many of us understand that bipolar depression and things like this is because we're a spiritual being. It's not shunned and looked upon as something bad, not by those that are intelligent anyway. When you use your intelligence, you understand you're a spiritual being, which means you can see and hear the spiritual life of the Heavenly Lord, which means ancestors, angels, demons, and many other people and ancestors in your life, and loved ones that have passed, but they're always with you. So in today's age, mental illness is slowly starting to come out, that it's more than we understand. The mind is not what you think. It's what you feel inside your heart, and it goes from your heart to your head. Many people think, no, I speak intelligently. It's not my heart. It's not my heart. You realize that your heart is your center. It's your ground. You ground yourself in your heart, and when you do that, you think more clearly. So understand the heart and the mind are connected. But you have to understand you're a spiritual being, not just physical, but spiritual. See, in this life, my mother was taken away from me when I was 7 years old. And I pretty much raised myself except for my sisters helping me at times. Now, my elder sister did most of the work. She took care of us. But as I grew up, I always took care of myself because I knew I had to. I moved from Iowa all the way to New York when I was 17 years old. I lived at my sister's house and found a job and started on my own path. I left the day after graduation because it was a very small town and I enjoyed growing up there, but I knew that it wasn't for me anymore. I knew that I had to come to New York. There was a calling for me to come to New York. So I got daring and I left and drove all the way from Iowa to New York City. Excuse me. Now, you ready for such a story? Because I'm 53 years old, Father has now unfolded that I'm Mary Magdalene. He has unfolded a house that has a beautiful story behind it of how I found it. It's a $3 million home, and I am in no means for that right now in the natural world, but I have all the means for that in the spiritual world. It's all in the sky for me, and I'm waiting for Father to bring it down to earth so that I may have the house. It is His place of blessing for me. While this has been going on, do you realize that out of all the places that I could have come from Iowa to New York, I live 5 minutes from the house of the vision, but I didn't have the vision until I was in my 50s, my 40s actually. How is that possible? Father can project you for 50 years. He can do it a lot longer than that. I live 5 minutes from the house. So the house that I live in now is literally 5 minutes from the house of the vision I had 10 years ago. I've been living in my house for like 23 years. Isn't it kind of crazy that the first house I ever bought was less than 5 minutes from the house of the vision Father was going to give me for a destiny out in the public life? Now, as this is unfolded, as all of my videos have told you, I'm walking towards a soulmate. Sorry. I'm walking towards a soulmate. Now, my soulmate, Teresa, I know her skin color. She's mocha skin. I also know that she's Caribbean. I know that she's vegan. I know that she's in service, just like I am, but in different ways. We've both had a similar journey. We both had a rough childhood, but we never thought it was rough. We thought we were blessed. We both fought our way through trials and tribulations, sickness, death, all kinds of things. I can tell you, the sicknesses that I've been through, I've had regular things, my gallbladder taken out, things like that. But what really has struck me is that when I was in my 20s, I got very depressed. I got into a sickness that was sarcoidosis. I couldn't breathe. I got an infection in my lungs. I used to get, all the time, pneumonia. And many of the doctors told me I wasn't going to survive. I was going to die. And they wanted to put me on experimental drugs. And I tell you the story where I'm in the hospital, and Selena Gomez is on the left-hand side of me in spirit. And she tells me to fight for my life. Now, this was probably about 15, 20 years ago. I can't even remember the days anymore. They've all blended so much. But I knew her in spirit. I had watched her my whole life, in heaven and on earth when she came. We have been solely connected to each other, and we will see each other in this life. It's for a time Father has set for us to see each other. We've tried many times throughout our lives to get connected and be able to see one another. But as all of you know, she's in the public eye, and it feels like a sea of people in front of me, and I can never reach her. But I'm not supposed to. I've come to the understanding that I'm not supposed to. Father has kept us apart because we are going through our trials and tribulations of our soul contract. And we're working out our hearts in this life for all the past lives we have been through. See, she too was on the earth with the Lord. She's been around for 2,000 years as well. Here's the crazy thing. There's so much interaction Father has with you on a level that you can't even understand. Every little energy that's around your car, Father controls. So if you think you're a great driver, you better thank the Lord for that. Because dark energy is looking to harm you at any turn they can. Also, everything you attract is within your heart. You attract what's in your heart. So when people say claim your life, that's what they mean. They mean claim your heart. And if you don't like your heart, ask Father to change it. Because He will break your heart and mold it, build it, rebuild it, renew it, restore it, on and on. Father has broken my heart a million times, but he's also saved it a million times. This is what I mean by that. My mother died of cancer, and I watched her die a very slow death, and I was by her bedside. I saw her die, and I saw her talk to the Heavenly Father, the Lord, right in front of me. She was in her bed, and my spiritual sight saw. Sorry, it's very hot in the car. Let me roll down the window. I actually saw her in her bed, ask the Father for more time. Do you know he granted it? He granted her more time. And she lived for many more months. I literally saw her soul come right back to her body and gasp for air. And everybody thought she came back. And she did. Father granted her more time on earth. Even though she was in so much pain, she didn't care. She wanted to live. He said, you have 6 more months. Enjoy it. And she did. You know, she's one to never complain about anything or anyone. My mother was like that. My mother was also in service. She took care of the elderly until she was elderly. Now, I don't know if you guys can hear me because there's a bunch of cars outside. But I don't have an extra mic, so all I have is the telephone. So when Father took her home, it broke my heart. But it didn't break my heart in the way that you think. I wasn't mad at the Lord. I know that we're all on earth for a time period, and he all calls us home. And you and I have no say in that. You could have the closest loved one and love them dearly and beg Father to never take them. But if it's his want and his need for them to come to heaven, they go. You only stay on earth until he calls you home. There's no accidents in your life that bring a tragedy and you die and you have no control over it. That's a lie. That's a lie the darkness wants to tell you, that your life is not worth anything. Father tells you, you stay and I save your life every day. I'll tell you why. I'm 17 years old. I'm in a car with many other women. A drunk driver comes, hits us, spins our car 3 times into a river. I don't have a scratch on me. I get out of the car and help everyone else. A cop comes up to me and he says, do you understand? Looked me right in the eye. He said, do you understand how lucky you are? If that car would have hit you 1 inch in any direction, you'd be dead. I knew at that moment, my time on earth is in Father's hands, no one else's. You don't die accidentally. There are no accidents in life. If Father wants to save you, he'll save you. If he wants you to go home, he'll call you home. There's only one way home, and that's the Heavenly Lord. Now, that's just one part of my life. I'll tell you another part. Remember I was talking to you about sarcoidosis and Selena Gomez to tell me to fight for my life. I did. I got up the next morning, determined to live. I rose my heart and said, I'm going to live. I go home. I'm sitting on the steps gasping for air, asking the Lord what I should do, having faith that he's going to take me home. Without a doubt in my mind, I knew I could live. I wasn't like, I'm going to die. That wasn't in my mind. The moment I got home, I was like, what's next? What do I do now? Put me to work. As I did that, a friend of mine walked across the street and told me of a doctor that's a blood nutritionist that had done several things for a friend of hers and healed her, and told me to go. And I said, I will absolutely go. I made the appointment. I took this step that Father gave me. I put my hands to work. I went to the nutritionist. when I had sarcoidosis. He was a blood nutritionist that could tell you the cell of your body. He could tell you everything about the cell of your body. He had went to Europe and he had designed what he thought was perfect for anything that was organic in your body. So what he did was, he pricked your finger and put it under a microscope. He put the blood under a microscope, and he could tell you everything that was going on inside of you. He was extremely intelligent and extremely, how would you say it? Naturalist. A big naturalist. When I was in there, he could tell me things of my family history that I didn't know. And I knew that it was coming. I could feel it in my heart. Diabetic, things that were happening in my soul, I could see. Gets even better. I'm on tons of medication. I'm on so much medication that the doctors have given me probably 4 steroids, an inhaler, a powder, a pill, everything. And I could never breathe. You know that little device when you breathe into it and the ball pops up? Well, mine would go about this far, when the vase was probably this big. I couldn't breathe. And I didn't think I would ever see my son grow up. I was with Nick Riccio. New Beginnings was his company. For 6 months. He told me what foods to eat right for your blood type. He told me exactly what to take. It was called neocarotene. It was a pill of concentrated carrots, but it was so high in beta carotene that it almost made your skin silky, without a doubt. But what it did, it repaired my lung. Do you know that I became a karate instructor after that? You also know that I also became a power lifter after that. I went from having no physical ability to doing whatever I wanted. That's real. That really happened to me. If you don't believe that Father can bring you through trials and tribulations, here's another one for you. I also went through an event where I lost my sight. I would lose my sight for 15-20 minutes at a time. It would go black. It would be like a black blanket, and it would come down, and I couldn't see. I went to the doctor, and the doctor told me there was nothing wrong with my eyes. They were physically healthy, and he couldn't figure out why. I went to another doctor to find out what to do. My heart knew something. I could feel it in my heart that there was something wrong. I had went through a very heavy battle of my blood being very thin when I was later in life, and I couldn't figure out why. So my doctor had recommended that I do an IUD to make the blood flow slow down. The problem is, it slowed it down so much that I lost sight in my eye. So I had to take it out. Now, anyone that's got an IUD, be safe. Your pharmacist or the people that make them will tell you there's nothing wrong with it. What I'm here to tell you is that after I took it out, my sight started to return. I had less and less and less of those issues, but I had to deal with it until it became better. I had to take eye medication for it to get better. I had to make sure that I addressed my blood problem as well. So I found a natural pill that Nick had recommended to me years ago, and I had remembered. So I went and took what's called Hemoplex. It's a blood strengthening pill for your blood. I take that all the time. And now I no longer have any blood issues. I also no longer have any sight issues. So I've been through more than you can imagine. I've also been through where I told you before my mother had died of breast cancer, and I watched her die. They had recently found a lump on my breast. and they did not know if it was cancerous. While all of it was going on, you have to take all kinds of precautions. You have to have surgery, you have to wait for results, and you have to manage your emotions while that's going on. That was a very difficult period. But I always told myself, Father wants me out in the public eye. I'm not going to die. I'm going to beat this. Luckily, they took it out and it wasn't cancerous. And they said it's very rare because your mother died of it. My mother had breast cancer and it spread through her brain and she died of brain cancer. Do you realize that all these trials and tribulations, Father has spoken to me in silence and keeps me going, keeps reminding me that He is in control of my life. He started to unfold that I'm Mary Magdalene, and I started to realize that I had known it all my life, but that it was hidden for me to discover, for me, to discover myself in like the deepest parts of your soul. The devil had fought very hard to take my soul. He tried at every turn. I'll give you some examples. I'm getting married. This was many years ago. 20, 30 years ago. It's hard for me to remember all the times. I'm actually having a great time. All of a sudden the devil shows up in my third eye and I can see him. And I'm actually with the guest. And I'm talking to the guest. And all of a sudden he starts tearing me down, telling me that I look ugly, that I'm no good, that I destroyed and ruined my wedding, and on and on and on, ripping me apart. Now I knew in my heart to let it go, to not think about it and enjoy the day. Father would bring blessings that day. And He did. I had a beautiful wedding. But as this has started to unfold and the devil got closer and closer and closer to me where I could see him, right there, he was in my face. I could see him very close. And he wanted to tear me apart. And he wanted to make sure that I had all the suffering that he had in his power. Now, I can't tell you how much suffering I've been through, except it happens every single day, every single moment, and every single day Father carries me through. I will have the best time for about an hour, and then I will go home and get tortured about being homeless. I will feel homeless, suffering on top of me. I can feel the street. That's how homeless. Even though I'm in a bed, I can feel the street. And then I can feel others on the street. I can also feel when the devil wanted to destroy me and make me hate the Lord. Here's the answer to you. This is the soul contract that I gave the Lord. The devil tormented the Lord that he could steal Mary Magdalene. My response? Let him try. Because I knew that he couldn't. And it's honor to my Lord to do that. Don't ever think he has any control over you. The devil doesn't. The devil has no control. As I've mentioned to you all these stories, he had no control if I lived or died. But I had the control of my will to want to survive. Do you have the will to want to survive? Because the only relationship in this entire existence of yours that matters is yours with the Lord. If you have Him, you have everything. Now, everybody has told me my entire life, you can't do that. Don't do this. Don't do that. You shouldn't do that. Be careful. I'm right here. I made it through all of that. And all of them told me, how did you do that? That's how I did it. I did it with the Lord. My gut instinct. My will to survive. That's how I did it. There's no magic to it except Father's magic. You put your heart and soul to Him. You put your compass at Him, even if the devil is in front of you. Now understand, my contract is real. I am Mary Magdalene from the tomb, and I will be in the public eye because it's my destiny and fate. Father has fated it. Just like Father has fated that I meet my divine counterpart, Teresa, that I was married to as a man 3 lifetimes ago. Now I'm a woman. She's a woman in this life. And we will meet up. We will get married. I will find her and I will meet her. Do you understand? All this religion that is on the ground is man-made. God made you. God's relationship with you is what matters, not rules and regulations. The only rule you need to follow is what the Lord wants for you. And remind yourself, when you have all these rules and regulations in your religion, did he not pick everyone that everybody told him not to pick? And didn't he tell all of you, your sins are forgiven? Don't throw a stone unless you have no sin. Did he not tell you that you're more worthy than any fisherman? Because you're a fisherman of men. Did anybody remember these things in this life, in this 2022? Do you remember these things in this life? Because it's going on every day. War is still going on over religion. He came to this earth to get rid of that, not to make more of it. If you are out there and you are telling other people they're a sinner, do you realize what that does to your karma, your soul? It makes your soul bitter. It makes your soul dark. That's all you're doing. Doesn't matter what religion you are. You're making your soul dark. So you're going to carry that out through this life and into the next. And then that's going to come back at you. Do you understand? Karma is a real thing. Justice scale is a real thing. The Lord is a real, hardcore teacher of life. And he told you your sins are forgiven. And he's in control of your life. Not a religion, not a church, not a parent, not a sister, not a husband, not a wife. None of that. Your relationship with him alone is the only thing you need. Now understand, I'm walking towards my counterpart, but I can't get there until I have worked out mine. To be me. To be in the destiny, to be in the spotlight. She's done the same. Because when we get together, we're going to be a power couple. Now, some people will make fun of that. But do you understand what power means? The power of good exists. The power of good is real. And it's here to stay. Oh, and by the way, just to add to some of the trials and tribulations, when the devil came after me, I ended up in a mental institution and a rehab for bipolar depression. And I'm still standing. And I'm still underneath a doctor's authority to take medication because I hear voices and they say that you shouldn't. And I say my ancestors come. And so does my mother. So does Mother Mary. So does John, the disciple. So when many people are out there telling you you're mental because you hear voices, remind yourself there are a lot of good voices to hear.